What up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Blacktop Podcast. And we're two-manning it today. Christian had to work, but man, it's been a few weeks. I mean, Ruben, we were already talking about this, man. I've been itching to get back on the pod. How you doing, bro?
I'm good, bro. It's been a lot, eh? Basketball season since we last talked took quite a bit of a turn
Yeah,
in so many ways. But yeah, it's been good. It's been good. It's been busy, but I'm glad that we get to talk shies about basketball again,
no doubt. I
bro.
mean,
There's
there's
so
been
much to
so much
cover, man.
stuff. Yeah. I mean, I think without like having too much kind of setup, let's get right into it. So, first thing I want to touch on is this new CBA. We'll just go through each kind of thing and get our
Yeah.
own thoughts on it. First up, the in-season tournament. How you feeling about it, Ruben? Before you go though, before we started, I don't know if this is legit, but the the format's looking like this so far from a thing I saw on Twitter. So each team is assigned to six pools. Doesn't matter the conference, division, nothing like that. And then during the first 6 weeks of the season, teams will play four group games. So it's kind of similar to soccer or football, depending on where you're from, where there's like that interleague little like mini tournament thing. So after that, the winners of each pool and two wildcard teams advance to a single elimination. The tiebreaker, it's not determined yet, but they're looking at things like point differential. And then semifinals and finals are on a neutral site. And then again, I think how most people know, the players of each champion team get 500 grand. So how you feel about the in-season tournament, Rube?
Um, I'm neutral about it right now. And like the short answer to my long probably spiel is the fact that like I don't think the in season tournament for me is a hot like I don't think the 500,000 is a hot enough incentive.
Mm,
Maybe it is for players who are coming off the bench and don't have a contract, and maybe they're playing for that extra money. But I think personally it's a way that they're trying to get more players engaged and more fans engaged during the mid part of the season, which is typically like what did they say that a time frame of when they would have the in season tournament? Is it after like a portion of
uh,
games, or is it like in March? Like, are they trying to directly compete with the NCAA?
I hope they wouldn't do that because I think
I don't
March
think they would.
is pretty dominated by college basketball at that time. But
Yeah,
yeah, I think the only thing is that if you win the tournament, or if you're in the final, you end up playing, I think, 83 games in total.
yeah, which is a lot, right?
Yeah.
And then that alongside the fact that we have award restrictions, which we'll get into,
Mm,
that hampers a lot of players' ability. Like a lot of them aren't going to want to play in this mid-season tournament because the incentive just isn't hot enough. Sure, like me and you could say, "Oh, 500,000! Like I'll play my butts off for for a tournament. Like I'll play my ass off for this." But the thing is, a lot of these NBA players already make that kind of money, and they kind of could quadruple like that by 4 million times.
yeah.
Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just 500,000 is not that hot of an incentive. Number one, number two. I just don't know if fans are gonna get as engaged with a mid-season tournament because at the end of the day, it still doesn't matter unless there was a really good incentive to say, hey, if you win the mid-season tournament, you are guaranteed a playoff spot or something like that. If they did something like that, then it's like okay, like maybe that works. I know that sounds dumb because what if the Houston Rockets end up winning the tournament because their team,
But
like
decide to play
they
all their
had
players. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, exactly. They decide to play all their players and not resting their guys, right? Like some teams probably just won't give a crap about the midseason tournament because at the end of the day, the NBA finals are going to matter the most. But if they had some sort of incentive like that, then the team can say, we were talking about this with the All Star game, like, oh, whoever would have won the All Star game would represent or would have home court advantage in the East or West or something like that, right? So it's like, I don't know. I just find that I'm just neutral about it. I want to see what it'll look like. I'm really interested because for us to go from a regular season, which you've known to love, to oh, we got to get hyped for this midseason tournament now, and then go back to a regular season again. Likely at a time where games probably don't matter as much for the top teams, so we're only really looking at shuffling and seeding for the 7 to the 10 seeds, because then they got to go to the play-in tournament. still they've got to still go to the play-in tournament 7 to 10, and then they've still got to play their way into the playoffs. So it's like, so if I'm the player, like a mid-season tournament just doesn't sound appealing because then it's just more games, more nonsense to try and generate revenue. I don't know. I that's why I'm saying it's neutral, because there's part of me that really wants to see this succeed too, because I think that they're trying to make change because the regular season tends to die down a little bit after January. And then
For
February
sure.
happens, All-Star game, it's great, trade deadline, see the new players, and then March hits and we're all like, okay, well, it's fantasy season. Hopefully players don't sit, right? And then we're just waiting for that time, and then playoffs start, and that's when exciting basketball happens again, right? So there's periods of time, and we've seen this because, I work directly with the NBA. We look at the numbers and we look at viewership, and the viewership tends to really die in January. Then it goes up literally for a week because of All Star, and then it dies again. So, I mean, there's a lot to unpack with the midseason tournament. I mean, let me know what you think about it, but like I'm pretty neutral, more on the I think this is useless side. But that's just me.
Yeah, I'm kind of mad about it, but I think that's kind of how it was with the play-in tournament, where it's this new thing, it's completely out of the norm, and your first initial
Yeah.
reaction is to like deny it or like be against it. And I'm not saying I'm like super for it or anything, but there's like a couple things I'm wondering, because if you think about it, as much as like a player's contract can say they get paid 40 m's, the tax man
Yeah.
comes. So I'm wondering, is that if that 500K is tax free, that's a little more incentivizing, not like enough to I
That's
think
true.
make like the top players be like, for sure I'm gonna play, but I think that's a valid thing to question. And then another thing is, I think I I'm wondering what they mean by neutral site. I'm assuming that means like, or not assuming, I would hope that means a chance to like how we had the global games, how you have these places like France, Mexico City, Vancouver pre-pandemic, where there aren't cities or like states with NBA teams, but you're able to get some of that product that is the NBA into there, so you can kind of gauge, fan interest, potential, landing spots, with everybody kind of talking about how we're kind of overdue for an expansion team. So I think that's a chance there to really, really again expand the brand, and hopefully get some team or some like states, some places that don't necessarily get to see these players, and potentially see that.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of cosmetic upside, but again, I think there's just not enough incentive from like for me as like a guy who gets paid 20, 30 plus million to be like, yeah, I'll put my career on the line for 500 grand. But we'll see
Yeah.
how it goes. Let's get right into the next thing though, the awards threshold. 65 games. How you feel about that, Rube?
I think Draymond Green said it the best. Like he did a podcast on this, and he literally said, um, all these owners are going to be pissed when they find out that they're going to have to award an all NBA guy who typically wouldn't have been an all NBA guy if it weren't for the threshold a max contract. So let's say, for example, I'm just going to put this out there. A lot of these guys don't play 65 games anymore. A lot of them are just 62, 63. I mean, look at a guy like Kevin Durant who's only played half the season. 65 isn't like that hard for guys to reach, but then we are talking about a pretty significant group of players not making that. I mean, yeah, we're talking about 10 to 15 like the best players that are going to, but then there might be a few that fall through the cracks, right? We might say, well, oh, let's see, let's go down the line,
Yeah,
and
like for
you know,
example, I'm looking at it. Giannis would not make the cut. Kyrie
no,
would not make the cut. Who else is there
KD wouldn't
here?
make the cut.
PG wouldn't make the cut.
Yeah, Kawhi wouldn't either,
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
Kawhi would not.
Um, there's a, I mean, if Giannis didn't make it, that's already a huge thing because then this whole MVP conversation
And
is
Jaw
kind
wouldn't
of a
make it
wash.
either.
Exactly. So you're talking about guys who are all NBA talents who would make it. You might end up going, well, let's look at this. Brandon Ingram, who we all know is a star player, he hasn't made it. Right? He hasn't hit the 65 game threshold. We start to look at different teams, and you start to go, oh, right, So who do we award All NBA to? You
Dame's
go,
another guy too.
OG Ananobi. Wow, he played 68 games this year, 17 points, 2 steals, leading the league in steals. You know what? Let's put him on the third team All NBA because he helped the team get to a whatever. Then you gotta award that guy a super max contract because when you're an All NBA player, that you're basically that labels you to be a star player, financially and on paper, in this league, right? Because awards and accolades are really important to the incentives of your deal. So is OG Ananobi a supermax deal? Like, I think this is a rhetorical question. Like, he's not a supermax player, but we're gonna see guys that fall through the cracks who are really good guys, but not all NBA talent that are going to win these awards. Um, Again, there's only 15 spots, so the reality of that actually happening, like really seeing like OG Ananobi's and maybe a Mikal Bridges. He's looking good though, by the way. But like those kind of
Cal's dog.
guys. Um, I could name a bunch more off the top of my head, like in some time. But yeah, like we're talking about guys who probably shouldn't win All NBA, like a Jaren Jackson Jr. Like that guy's not an All NBA player this year,
No.
but like he could fall through the cracks because the Memphis Grizzlies are our top three team in the West. He's been playing really well. He managed to make an All-Star game, but he was picked last. Like, but he's a guy that could fall through that cracks because the other guy on his team wasn't eligible for it. So you got to reward winning at some point too. So I mean, that's my long way of saying. Like, I think this is. I think the threshold is kind of bad. I understand, like, but like guys like Jokic and Giannis who have already won it aren't going to give a shit about this award thing now
Mm.
because they've already won it. So then they're going to be like, oh, well, so why should I keep trying? Like, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to try and stay healthy for the season. So then the MVP conversation is going to be between Bam Adebayo, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Jason Tatum.
Damn.
Like, that's great. Like, wow, that's so good for the league. The faces of the league. Like, Devin Booker, like, what did he? Did he even play 65 games this year?
Oh no, I don't think so. Because he missed
Like,
like a good chunk of time.
let's see. Devin Booker games played. Really quickly. I just want to search that up, make sure. He played 53 this year. So that man's not even in the conversation. So yeah, all right. What a great race between Zach LaVine, Bam Adebayo, and Jaren Jackson Jr. That's the MVP race, folks.
And I think a thing for me too is like, how are they going to gauge, like, I guess for lack of a better word, like a proper 65? Because you could see things like, I don't know if you remember like last year before the Bucks went on their like chip run, not to stick that in everybody's face again, but the whole thing with Drew where, checked in for a minute, got an intentional foul. Bud didn't look too happy, but, we played to get that incentive. So I'm wondering if there's going to be things like that. And I think there will be next year where you see guys trying to like cheat the system where, say, it's a game where typically you'd expect Embiid to rest, but for the sake of continuing that 65, checks in for a minute, gets a quick foul, boom. He's not playing the rest of the game, but now he has that game played on his thing. So I think it's a step in the right direction in terms of trying to kind of thwart the idea of resting players heavily, but I think just like that and how you're saying there's going to be times where there's guys that definitely don't deserve it, but they are automatically thrusted into it because of how many games they played, where, I think it's something they'll revisit next time they talk about the CBA. But again, I think it's a step in the right direction, but I think there's still a bit of tweaking. Same thing with, I think, positionless All NBA. Let's get into that. I think for that, it's very, they should call it the Embiid rule because I feel it's solely, well, maybe not solely, but Embiid. Actually, yeah, solely. They're doing that a lot for Embiid. And I think as much as we talk about positionless basketball, as much as that's really like a big narrative, I think there's still the classical ideal of you have your guards, your forwards or wings, and your big man. I think that's still a big thing. Now, obviously, you got outliers like Draymond, Scotty's somewhat looking like that at times. And there's these guys that are kind of tweeners. I think those are the guys that get heavily hurt. Jalen Brown's another guy where I think he's definitely going to get votes
Yeah,
for All NBA, but it's going to be split between a guard and a forward
guard
because he
forward. Yeah,
goes between those two. So I think positionless All NBA. I'm not a big fan of it, but I understand it. But I like the idea of like saying, "Oh, I was the All NBA first team center," not that's just, "Oh, I was All NBA first team."
yeah,
That
agree.
solidifies like you're the best not only in the league but at your position. There's a reason why Jokic is All NBA first team. There's a reason why, Embiid,
Yeah,
as great as he is, the fact that I don't want to say he's one dimensional when it comes to being just like on the offensive end from a score making perspective, but I think that's something that you got to take into play. And when you look at like how much like Jokic contributes, as much of an offensive engine he is, you know, Embiid's great. Don't get me wrong, but Jokic, I would take Jokic any day personally.
yeah. I mean, I that's interesting because I would take Joel Embiid any day
Mm.
personally. That's the conversation we're gonna have. But I think when you look at there's a thing that I like about it and I don't. I think you talked about why I don't like it is because yeah, I think it should be and the NBA already adjusted the positioning to say guards, forward, center. Right, we're not doing point guard, shooting guards. More. I don't think it was always like that, but I think it was. They've adjusted it so that there's two forwards, two guards in the center.
And I think that's like a good system.
And the problem, and if you look at it on a basketball court, unless you have the two players on your team, like, I mean, I get that's a bad conversation. Historically, you wouldn't have been able to play Shaquille O'Neal and Ben Wallace at the same time. You wouldn't have been able to play Shaquille O'Neal and Hakeem at the same time, right? I mean, maybe I know we used to play the two big style, but there's a reason you only had one center on the floor, and then you had a power forward, and you played inside out. You'd play high low, and actually that's a lie. Hakeem and Shaq could play together because Hakeem had a crazy skill set and he could step out.
Hakeem could, yeah, he could
But
hit you with
yeah,
middies.
he's an outlier. He's a guy who could still play in today's game. That's the thing. And same with Shaq. But like if we're looking at like typical centers back in the day, like you're not playing Jonas Valanciunas and Steven Adams at the same time. Like we're talking about, you're not playing Kendrick Perkins and uh, I don't know. You're not playing Kendrick Perkins and Shaq at the same time. And I'm listing guys who are never gonna make an All NBA team. But the problem is like you could play Jokic and Joel Embiid together, but more often than that, that also has a lot of like we're talking about on court, like that has a lot of there's a lot of negatives to that, right? Two bigs, fairly slower, while they are longer. You are playing a slow brand of basketball that probably doesn't exist in today's modern game, right? Because you're talking about defending the 3-point line, you're talking about guys that need to step out, and while Jokic and Joel can do that on the offensive end, they're probably unstoppable. Defensively, you are talking about Joel, who can cover the paint, and Nikola Jokic, who has quite frankly been more. He's been better, but he's typically been a negative defender,
Yeah,
right? And he's
he's
a
a
guy
guy
that
that
teams attack.
like kind of contributes to why advanced statistics can be a little misleading.
Exactly. So it's like there's two sides of the coin. I like positionless because regardless of what All NBA team you make, optically, everyone always just say, "Oh, he's an All NBA player." Doesn't matter. They don't say
That's
third
true.
team. They don't say
Yeah.
second team. They don't say first team. So if we look at the All NBA team this year, it would probably be something like, honestly speaking, Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum, Giannis, Joel, Nikola Jokic.
Dang, no Luca first team just because he didn't make the playoffs.
He's had a great season, but he's also fallen off like the last few games.
Yeah,
So I mean,
that's
I
valid.
mean, if I look at the last 10, 15 versus the entire season, you are right. That should be Luca, and I was gonna say Luca, but All NBA, we always get this conversation of winning versus individual statistics, but and I personally even go back and forth between it because I don't think there's a true answer. I just think you got to look at impact. I think you got to look at winning. I think you got to look at the stats to impact and how that's contributing to winning games. So if they're playing crazy basketball, like the four ladder names that I mentioned, and they're contributing to winning. Donovan Mitchell's helped this team blow up to a fourth seed. They look like a contender this year, which they weren't last year, right? They were a play-in team last year. Um,
I think they would have
so
been in like the solid playoffs though, because there was the part where
yeah,
everybody started going down.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, there's a part of me that says, okay, for me, it doesn't matter because Joel should be a first-team All NBA. But the difference is, if we look at it, we just say, oh, the dude's an All NBA player. Like people call Pascal Siakam two-time All NBA player. But the fact of the matter is, the dude has been a second and a third team guy. But no one cares. He's an All NBA guy. That's a superstar in this league. Same thing with any other player who's
That's a
made
good
that
point.
that
Yeah.
team. So, um, I think it doesn't necessarily matter. But if we're talking about basketball, like I think awards should really be representative of the game that we play. And you're not going to play two centers anymore, right? But there is the fact that we say, okay, those two guys deserve to be on the ballot. So I don't know. It's again, I think neutral,
Mm, yeah,
neutral,
neutral on the
neutral.
Joel Embiid rule. A couple other
Yeah.
things just to kind of mention. We don't necessarily have to get super into it. Teams are going to get 3 two-way spots, which I think is a big plus because I mean,
Yeah.
notable two-way
Huge.
guys: Lou Dort, Chris Boucher. If you want to say Duncan Robinson, Alex Caruso,
Yeah.
Monte Morris, Torrey Craig, Shake Milton, Naz Reid. Those are all guys who are solid rotational players. So great to see that. Hopefully, this brings another avenue for that next wave of guys. And no mid-level exception for teams like I think are over the luxury tax, something along those lines. Which
Mhm.
I think the big thing is always saying like it would negate the Dante DiVincenzo signing, which I'm definitely that's probably the one where I'm like completely like I'm not for that because
Yeah.
are players gonna want to sign for these teams on the mid-level if they're ass? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Like I think they just disguise it as a way of saying like, keeping the parody or whatever it may be. But yeah, that's the one thing where I'm like, I'm definitely not for it. But yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I agree with that. I just don't understand the rule. I mean, Dante DiVincenzo doesn't break your team. Doesn't break the team open and
Mm.
say, "Hey, man, the Warriors." Like, look at the season they
Yeah,
just had.
they got Steph, they got Wiggins, they got Draymond, they got Clay, and man, I know you ain't forgetting about Dante DiVincenzo. As much as I love you, Dante, Buck for life, you're an NBA champion, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
it's not
the
gonna break the
problem.
bank, I don't think.
We're basing this decision off of history, which is typically what you should do. You should look at historical data and be like, okay, like these are the decisions we're making. But the NBA is at its most balanced we've seen in so long. Like
Oh
literally,
yeah.
you and I can both say we think the Bucks are gonna win. That's like whether that's your bias or not, and whether that's me really being like, I think the Bucks are gonna win.
But I
No
can
one
also
can really
see
know.
a series where it's kind of similar to the Celtics and they get like kind of shat on and
Yeah,
exposed a bit.
yeah, and or like this is the one season where I can really truthfully say, oh, we're gonna see Philly and the Sacramento Kings in the NBA Finals. Oh, we're gonna see the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Denver Nuggets in the NBA Finals. Oh, we're gonna see the Boston Celtics and the Phoenix Suns again. Or like not again, but like it's like, you know what I mean? We're gonna see two teams that were just in the finals. But it's like those matchups, the Bucks could be playing the Lakers. I don't know. Like that's
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of situations. We'll get into that later, but
yeah.
before we get into that, Ruben, I got some quick hitters. It's kind of this or that kind of thing. Well, let's start it. Most surprising breakout: Laurie Markkinen or Jalen Brunson? Kind of the two poster childs of that for this year, I'd say.
Oh man, that's a tough one. Jalen, we already knew was good, so I'll say Laurie because I mean he didn't he broke out into an all star player, man. Like he went from
Mm,
being a fringe rotation guy to an all star. I think it's got to be Laurie. He looks so good. I mean, yeah, Laurie Markkinen.
yeah, I think that and recency plays a bit of it because I think people forget Laurie was like he was looking like he was one of them ones his second year, and then the Jim Boylan effect took place.
Yeah, that guy's a mess, man.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
guy's a mess.
Rank these by most disappointing. You have the Hawks, Mavericks, Timberwolves, and the Warriors.
So rank them by most disappointing.
Yeah. So most disappointing,
Hawks,
very top.
Hawks, Mavericks.
Timberwolves, and the
Timberwolves.
Warriors.
You know what? I wouldn't say the Warriors are disappointing at all. So I'd say they're at the bottom for me. I
Okay.
think the top are the Mavericks, man. I said they would make the Western Conference Finals this year.
You
I
did. You
said that in
did.
the beginning of the year, bro. They are for sure my most disappointing team. God damn. Um, Followed by the this is a crapshoot. Timberwolves Hawks.
Okay.
Hawks for me just don't have enough surrounding talent around their backcourt, and they've been plagued with injuries and coaching problems. So I'd have to say like I'm not surprised. Like I said, they were either going to be a top 4 team or they were not going to work. Because we said this in a podcast, we said either it's going to be really good or it's
They
going to
had
be
the
really
most boom
bad.
bust. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and right now it just clearly it's not a working it's not a work in progress. It's like it sucks. So and the Wolves probably second to top because they traded all that shit
Bro,
for
you
for
give them
Walker
that team
Kessler.
last year and you add Walker Kessler, they might come out the West on some real
Yeah,
shit. Holy.
the Wolves are ass.
Yeah, for
Ass.
me, my ranking was I had the Timberwolves at the top because again, you look at that team they could have had. Whew. Second, I have the Warriors just because they literally have their road record is on par with like Houston. That's crazy. And I don't know what it is, whether it was the punch. Wiggins is back, which is a great thing. But I think even when
Yeah.
he's back, their road record's still not that good. And then third, I have
No.
the Mavericks, which, you know, we'll talk about it later. But yeah, that was like on paper, it was one of those on paper, it looks really good. But then when you saw it in action, different story. And then the last I have the Hawks, because
Yeah.
like I think as much as they were like disappointing for sure, I think there were a lot of factors outside of basketball, or maybe not necessarily outside of basketball, but outside of play. We'll say it like that, because I mean, I
Yeah.
think that the honeymoon phase with Nate McMillan and the Hawks kind of ended. You saw it kind of start to erode. I think, with the whole Trae Young sitting out the game, and now you get a guy like shoot, I'm completely blanking. Quinn Snyder. Holy, you
Yeah.
get Quinn Snyder in it. It's a
Very
little.
good hire,
He's
though.
kind
Very
of
good hire though.
yeah.
I think it's a very good hire, but
Oh yeah, I think it's a good hire, but I think again this season was kind of cooked as soon as like that whole you saw the unwinding start to happen as soon as like
yeah.
the whole Nick McMillan beef and all that. But I will say if there's a team that I think can like boom next year, I would maybe put the Hawks up there because they have the personnel to really be one of the better teams, but it's just a matter of having the right coach around that, and we'll see what happens
Yeah.
next year for that. Who do you think takes a bigger jump next year? Indiana or OKC? This is assuming everybody's healthy
Wow.
too.
Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City because of the fact that they are going to bring Chet Holmgren on next year, right?
Mm.
And then they're still going to have a draft selection, and they've been really good in the draft. They have.
Sam Sam
I
Press
don't
Sam
think they've
Presti
missed.
is a goat, man.
We don't talk enough about it. We talked a lot about him in the beginning years when he had Kevin Durant, James Harden. Like that should have just been like a sign to say, dude, this dude is awesome. Like this dude has an eye for talent. And then you look at the team, and someone did a breakdown actually of Oklahoma City. It was like playoffs, 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 finals, West Conference final, playoffs, 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 first round exit, rebuild, second year, rebuild. Oh, the Oklahoma City Thunder have been rebuilding forever. Third year, play-in. Like if you think about it, this team has rebuilt for 2 years, and now they're back in the postseason action.
Yeah, because I mean before Chet, who was their last lottery? They're like,
It was
oh, was
what's the
it
name?
Darius Baisley?
Was it Darius Baisley? Well, no, it was Chet, and then who did they pick that homeboy last year? They
Oh,
picked
Giddy. Yeah,
Giddy.
Josh Giddy.
They picked Giddy. They did pick Darius Baisley the year before that, but I believe they were at a
So,
higher. I believe Baisley was a low draft pick.
let me. This is bad podcasting, but let me. I swear, Baisley was like a top pick. Oh, never mind. 23rd. Yeah. Never mind.
Yeah, because they were in the they still made the
Oh,
playoffs
yeah. This
that
is the pick from
year.
the CP3 year.
Yeah.
I
Like if
believe,
I'm
right?
not mistaken, did they not make the they made the playoffs that
No,
year
never mind. No,
because
this is that year that he got drafted. But
2019 was the year they still had Russ and Paul George,
mm,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and that's the year that the Raptors won the championship. And I still remember Kawhi backing down Paul George going, right? Do you remember that? You remember that? Paul George
Yeah,
was trying to bump him, and Kawhi's like,
it's like
"How
this
you play
was
with
this
him?
is,
How you play with him, Kawhi? You play with that weak ass guy."
that was one of the
Just kidding.
most legendary runs I think we'll ever see. It
That was
had
awesome.
everything. The iconic shots, the clamping, the
Yeah,
eventual chip. Whew.
but
But yeah,
but
I
think
agree
about
with
it.
that. The Thunder are gonna be
They
nasty next year.
Yeah, they've only rebuilt what 2020, 21, 22,
And
and now
22,
they're
you
back
can
in
kind of put
postseason.
an asterisk because, like, or do you mean 22 as in this year?
2022 is well, this is 2023 now, right?
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
talking about last year. They rebuilt 2021 bubble. Well, not bubble year, but 2020. I believe. Yeah, they were already bad that year because that was the year Russ left,
Mm,
PG left. 2021, obviously, they ended up getting Giddy the next year. Last year they get Chet Holmgren, so they've only been rebuilding for 3 years, which is less than a typical rebuild time. You look at rebuild time; it's like 4 to 5 years,
yeah.
right? Because that first pick that you get, you start to develop him for the 4 years, and then you start to surround that talent. But they're in postseason action, and they're very much a team that looks like that can make the playoffs next year.
No doubt. I like Indiana though. I'm not saying I agree. I think
They're gonna,
OKC has the better future, but fully healthy, I think Indiana's very good next year. I mean, you saw it where they were formidable throughout the year, and then they had that whole two week plus stretch without Tyrese, and then you saw they
yeah,
kind of shattered there. But when you look at the team, they have I think they have their staples, not only just from like the
yeah,
star factor, but Andrew Nemhart as a role player, very good. Canadian boy. We're gonna support him. TJ McConnell, nice scrappy dude. Miles Turner, like a top 10 center at times. And then, I think it's all on, not all on, but I think a lot of it has to do with how Benedict Mathurin matures. Because I think you saw this year where he has the ability to put up points at like a rapid rate, but the efficiency is what really needs to catch up there. So I'm excited to see how that goes.
yeah. No, I agree. I think it's a personnel thing. I think the front office has to make some additions for them to be
Mm.
competitive
They're
next
heading in
year.
the right direction for sure, though.
They absolutely are because if Tyrese goes down for 2 weeks and you can't withstand that, then you're not a playoff team,
No doubt.
right? But you've seen in the past, like players go down. Drew Middleton went down. Like Middleton was still unhealthy, and this team was still a top three team in the Eastern Conference. So if you really are a good team, then it's all about personnel and building that right roster and having
Mm.
guys that can step in where they're needed. So if they manage to do that, then yeah, I think they're a playoff team next year. I mean, I think
Yep.
they're for sure a play-in. Um, if Miami blows it up, man, I just want Miami to blow that shit up. Sorry, I have to change subjects, but Miami gotta blow that up, bro.
Yeah, that
Miami's
team
gotta
that
blow that team up,
that
man.
team has peaked. All right, last little quick hitter before we get into this little playoff picture we got going on. Who do you think's under more pressure? The Sixers or Denver? And I will say this, we'll preface it like this. This is the Sixers as they are, but this is Denver if Jokic wins his third straight MVP. So now you're going into like this whole like is he gonna live up to it kind of thing.
Um, JJ Redick talked about this with Richard Jefferson, and I thought it was so interesting because JJ said Philly, and RJ said Denver. And I see why he chose Denver because Denver has all the tools to win this year. They have all the tools. They've arguably the best player in the league. I said arguably because again, it is arguable, right? They have the best player in the league. You have Jamal Murray, second fiddle, who is by far, when healthy, one of the best guards in the league. He's one of the best scorers in the league.
Oh man,
He
him and
the
Donovan
dude puts
Mitchell's
on
duels
50.
will live
Oh
on
my god, that's awesome.
for eternity, man.
Yeah. I mean that was awesome. Like Jamal Murray is a certified dog. We already know that. Um then you talk about the additions of KCP, right, who has
Mhm.
clearly been a huge contributor to this team this year. Forgive me if I'm missing people. Obviously, we're talking about MPJ, Aaron
Bruce
Gordon,
Brown.
Bruce Brown, who's been awesome for them too. So they have all the tools. They have scoring weapons. They have guys who can defend. They have the best player. They have a second fiddle. They've got really good coaching under Michael Malone. But after watching them, I was watching them for a good period. I was watching a few games after they played the Raptors, where the Raptors nearly beat them if it wasn't for the stupid call on Scotty, and then when
Oh
the
yeah.
Raptors came and blew them out the second game. And then watching them after that, the preceding games, I was like, man, there's something about this team that I don't like, and I can't put a finger on it. But they play a really good brand of basketball when they manage to control the momentum of the game. But they do really poorly with really long defenses. They do really poorly with really long defenses. And when they can't control the pace of the game, they have a really hard time getting into any action. Um, because when you're controlling the pace of the game, you could control the rhythm, the momentum of the game. When you have a guy like Jokic, you can go up and forth. Um, and so when it comes down to playoff basketball, we all know this. It's literally a much slower game. And so when you play a slower game, your half court offense and your ability to create something out of nothing is super important. And they lack a lot of ability to mismatch, other than Jokic, right? Because Jokic is the mismatch creator, right? He's a guy
Mm.
who can step out, bring up the ball, play in the high post, go into the low post, can be the screener, can be the roll man, could play the pick and roll himself with a smaller player, but they don't have a lot of secondary action that counters that stuff. I mean, like from the games that I've seen, like where they were struggling, and again, maybe a lot of this is what I'm basing off playing Toronto, and then the teams after that, because you look at a long team like Toronto where they're really good at scrambling, and Denver's really good at getting that ball to the next guy, but when they're not causing that mismatch in the first place, when they can double and they can blitz and they can switch, um, that's a problem because in the playoffs you're just going to see that 30 more times. So that's the long thing for me to say is the reason why I think Denver doesn't have as much pressure as Philly is because they just don't have the players that can um, when it comes to playoff basketball and you put all your money on the stars. Philly's got James Harden and Joel Embiid. You have those guys where you say, all right, take us to the promised land, right? And it's and that is what's supposed to take you to playoff success. So optically and on the court, really long-winded answer for me to say Philly has the most pressure because Joel Embiid is hunting the MVP. James Harden is coming close to father time, and Joel's time is also running out for him to win a chip. Like this is a really good window for them now because this is as wide open as it's ever been, and their team is as good as it's ever been. In fact, I would argue that this team is better than what they had in 2019 with Jimmy Butler, Ben
Yeah, you
Simmons,
think it's
JJ
better
Redick,
than the
Tobias
Jimmy
Harris.
team?
I think so.
Ooh.
I honestly agree. I honestly think so because you have Tyrese Maxey, you have Tobias Harris, you have DeAnthony Melton, you have PJ Tucker, you have a lot of really good rotation guys, and I think they're a much deeper squad than they were in 2019. And for
Yeah, because
all
I'm not
that,
gonna lie, I can't even think who was coming off the bench for that Sixers team in 2019.
they had, oh my God, what was that dude's name?
I
Who did
feel
they
like
have on
Furkan
there?
Korkmaz was playing like hard rotation
Yeah,
minutes.
and they've also got Montrezl Harrell. Like this is a team
Mm.
that's really deep. So when you talk about the pieces in place, and you have to really think about coaching. Like Doc Rivers is a championship coach, and he's had a lot of pressure, like blowing leads and stuff like that in the playoffs. There's a lot of storyline for Philly, which is why I think they have the most pressure, and also in the basketball court because they are really good, man. Like Philadelphia, if it wasn't for some of the nagging injuries they've had throughout the year between their star players, I think this team could have been first seed. I really think they could have been the best team in the Eastern Conference. So with that being said, again, Denver has a lot of pressure because they have everything in place. Like they have the squad, they have the players, they have good coaching. There's just something about them where I go, okay, if I were like if I were to ask you, DJ, on any given night, if I had the choice to take these players to war, if I had the choice between Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, James Harden, Joel Embiid, you'd tell me you wouldn't take Joel Embiid and James Harden over Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic? If you had to build your roster out, you wouldn't take those two first?
Mm, no, I'm kidding. Yeah, I
Wow.
take Joel.
Wow.
I'm kidding. I
Okay.
take Joel. Yeah.
That's you take Joel and James Harden over
Mm.
Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. And that's really what it comes down to in the NBA playoffs, man. Like I know they talk all about like roster and all this stuff, and I'm kind of contradicting myself a little bit here, but when you talk about teams, you play a tight rotation in the playoffs, and it's about mismatch. Like you got sometimes guys just need to take over to win games. Giannis did it um, last year. Steph did it the year before that. LeBron did it, right? Kawhi did it. You could go as far back to Paul Pierce did it, and you could go as far back as to KD did it. Like Kyrie did it. The stars are what will take you over the hump. So, yeah, along with saying Philly's got the like significantly more pressure,
Mm.
in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel that. I think rather than me just kind of reiterating, let's look at it from this perspective. If they lose, what do you think happens? Because I mean, you got James Harden's potential extension. Now you got even more questions than there already are with Doc. There's a lot of things that I think could happen, and I'm not gonna lie. I'll say it here. If they don't win, I think blowing it up is a path you look at.
I was just about to say I
Mm.
agree with that. I definitely think they have to blow it. I think they have to. I think they have to because you can't run this team back, especially if they don't go deep. If they don't go at least the Eastern Conference Finals,
I think
and they lose
ECF, then
like
you
Game
run it back.
Seven,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and if they lose in Game 7 to Boston or Milwaukee, then I say, oh, you know what? This team was inches away. Let them run it back. Add another player or two,
I
or
think you
make some
low key though. I
changes.
think you fire Doc if you go, because
I
okay,
don't think you do.
if it's okay, here's my thing though. If it's a
Okay.
close game 7, like wire to wire, then yeah. But if it's like Doc gets completely out coached, which I think
They
in the
get Phoenix
playoff
Suns by
times,
the Mavs.
yeah, if some shit like that happens, then man,
He's out. Yeah, he's
I
gone, bro.
love you, Doc, but holy.
He should go back to broadcasting if he were to lose that.
Mm.
Yeah, but yeah, I agree with that. I agree. I think they definitely should look at blowing it up or looking at because they haven't done a whole lot of roster reconstruction. I mean, they still try to just fill the gaps in with names. And I really think you look at and say Tyrese Maxey is the future of this franchise. While Joel is still fairly young, you gotta look and say, bro, like Tyrese Maxey is a stud.
Oh yeah, I
And
mean, when he had that leg injury to begin the year, I think that kind of killed a lot of the momentum that was on his name. Because I mean,
yeah,
I swear he was dropping like he was averaging like 25, 28 to begin the year. But yeah,
yeah,
I
mind
agree.
you,
He's
he's a
gonna
playoff
be.
performer too. He
Oof.
cooked the Raptors last year. He cooked them. There's nobody on the team that can guard him. Like Tyrese Maxey is going to be a great player. So I think I definitely agree with you. Look at blowing it up.
Mm. And then I think another thing is I think Tobias is heading in. Is this the last? I think this is the last year of his ungodly contract. Let me verify
He's talking
that
about
because I mean,
Tobias Harris, one of the great two-way players this game has ever
yeah,
seen.
man. Tobias Harris's career highlight is starring in a movie with Adam Sandler, man.
Oh my god.
And getting
You know,
cooked by
that guy's kind
Hernan
of
Gomez.
that guy's an anomaly too. Hey, like he would have been really really great, but there's something about him that reminds me so very much of like a Josh Smith.
Oh,
Like
yeah, I
so
see
much
that.
tantalizing potential,
Yeah.
really good but never great.
See, I think the thing is
Paid
this.
like a great guy.
Yeah. So
Tough.
just to add context, he's got one more year. So it's this year and next year. But, I think Tobias Harris isn't necessarily a terrible player, but I just
No,
think everything that gets put on his name with how much monetary value that he comes with, that's where you start to lose me. Because I'm not going to lie, I think he's the highest paid player on the team this year. And when you look at that
Is
on
he
the
really?
team, I think so. I feel like I saw that in I don't want to say I saw it in 2K, but I'm pretty sure that's where I saw it. But I mean, even yeah, oh my goodness, yeah, he's getting paid 37 this year. Joel's next. Joel and James are
Um,
tied at pretty much at 33 apiece. But yeah,
the
when you look
cap
at that,
figure.
it's oof.
Well, if I'm looking at the 2023 cap holds right now. He's the second highest player. From what
Okay.
I understand, Joel's base salary is at 46, and Tobias is currently at 39. So he's actually
Mm.
second paid, but the fact that he's getting paid more than James Harden is hilarious. James Harden did take a pay cut though, but Tobias Harris getting paid 39 million is insane. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah,
I
and
think,
and you know Tobias is great. He's a great rotational player, but he's not 37, $39 million
brother, this
great.
guy's getting paid more than Pascal Siakam.
Oof. Oh my goodness.
If Pascal Siakam was on the Sixers, like that team's winning the championship.
Oh yeah, that team's cooking everybody. But all right, heading from there, let's start with the Eastern Conference when we're looking at the playoff picture, just because it is the most
Yeah.
secured. I mean, it is absolutely secured. So top to bottom, you got Bucks, Celtics, Sixers, Cavs, Knicks, Nets, Miami, Hawks, Toronto, Chicago. I want to start here though. Let's start with the play-in. Ruben, my brother. I know you kind of already mentioned it before we got on, but Toronto and Chicago. The prodigal son returns. Do you think we're about to see a DeMar masterclass?
I had a back and forth with a fellow Raptors fan that I've been interacting with for a while, and she goes, or I tweeted, it's going to be hilarious when we see DeMar send the Raptors home. It's just going to be a really hilarious and ironic ending to this whole debacle from starting from when they traded DeMar. And I think that's also what should put the cap on this core. And that's I think they're at home. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that they'll take this. I think they've been a better team than the Bulls at least this year. They've dealt with a number of injuries. I think they don't look good, but I will say that I think they'll take the Bulls in the plan. I think the Bulls just don't look like they have it this year.
I think a
I mean,
lot of
it's a
that is
crapshoot
when
there.
when they don't have Lonzo, because when they had Lonzo, they were cooking, which
Well, that
it's
team was built
terrible to see.
specifically to have a guy like Lonzo.
Yeah, exactly. But they I think they're doing with what they have, but man, this is just my long-winded way of saying it's really sad to hear what's happening with Lonzo. I hope he's able to make a bounce back. I think a lot of people are like saying like a Sean Livington esque like return, which I don't think is anything to scoff at. But man, that I just want to see him play ball, man.
Me too. I mean, if you think about it, when Lonzo was playing, this team was the best team in the East at one point for a good portion of games. Like Lonzo is that good at being able to control the pace, and like if we're talking about like really good guards, like an extension of the coach on the floor, Lonzo Ball was that. Like, and
Mm,
he is that. Like, he's so good at controlling the pace of the game. I- He's a really good defender too, and
yeah.
he's improved all facets of his game, 3-point shooting. So, which is why he was perfect for this club. But
I mean,
you
there's
know,
always going to be that. Do you remember that one highlight, the full court pass? We baseballed that shit to Zach Levine.
yeah.
That I think that'll always
Oh
kind of
my
be
god.
like that'll always be something I remember. But man, it's all just to say, yeah, I got Toronto in this game, or I mean, I got Chicago in this game. I think
Yeah,
Demar
you
is
got
gonna come.
Chicago. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think for me, after watching Toronto, I just don't think they want it badly enough either. Watching them last night against the Celtics, I think they've just given up on the season. I think they tuned out Nick Nurse. I think Nick Nurse is gone after this year. I think there's just way too many
is he
things. Like
going to
if I could,
Houston? Is Nick Nurse
good
going to
luck.
Houston?
If he wants to go to Houston, that's good. Like that's fine. Like I really don't care who we hire at this point. I think there's a lot of issues with Toronto from a management standpoint. I think this is the 1 year Masai Ujiri has been cooked. I mean, this is the 1 year Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster that I can't say that they have not had a good year. They didn't even convert Jeff Doughton's 2-way deal to a regular contract. Instead, they
Really?
kept yeah.
Oh man,
From what I
Dowden
understand,
was
though, is
nice
they
though.
did yeah they did promise him that they will sign him to a full contract next year.
Hmm.
Only because they don't want to convert him this year because he's only gonna get play in action. Um, and they're pocket watching, which typically means they don't really believe in this core. I mean, they traded for Jakob, but I think that was more of a future decision because they own Jakob's bird rights, so they can re-sign him to any amount of deal, any long-term deal. From what I understand, Jakob's going to stick around, which is boom. Like that, your center position is good, but um, I think moving forward, I think we're going to see something change a lot this summer. So with that being said, benefit of the doubt, I'll give it to the Raptors, but don't be surprised if Chicago wins this and Toronto gets sent home. I don't think Toronto cares.
Alrighty. One thing I want to touch on though, because I don't necessarily want to go like a whole kind of mock playoff tree kind of thing. But yeah, we were talking about it. The Sixers and Nets series could be very spicy because, like I was saying to Ruben before we got on, matchup wise, I think the Nets match up very, very well. You have Spencer and Mikal as your backcourt, and that matches up incredibly well, I think, against like James and Tyrese. And then, Nicholas Claxton is a guy that I think people were very, very high on with like KD and Kyrie and how good the Nets were playing. And then as soon as like the national attention went away from them with those departures, he stayed very high, but everybody's, I think, perception started to go down a bit. So I think Claxton is a guy that's really, really, I think fits in to be one of the top centers defensively. And, what better way to really test that than to play against arguably one of the most dominating players right now. And this isn't to say that I think the Nets can upset. I don't think it's that, but I will say I wouldn't be surprised if it's similar to the Toronto series last year where they're making them sweat.
Yeah, I think they'll make them sweat. I think the Nets will stay a long-term playoff team. Mikal Bridges is so good, man. Like I think he's gonna be an
Mikal is about to explode in the playoffs, man.
He is also, and it's sad for me to say this about other players, but there's a lot of dudes that if they were just given opportunity, they would blow up. And the one guy that I constantly think about every single day is literally
Cam
OG.
Reddish.
Oh, okay, God.
No, I agree. OG, if you put him in a bigger role, could be way, way better.
Yeah, you say the same about Evan Fournier too. But anyways,
Evan Fournier. I saw him blow a wide open layup yesterday, brother.
It's okay, man. It's all right. It's all right. It's not his year. It's Cam Reddish's year. But OG's the same guy. But anyways, that to say, Mikal's gonna be an all-star. I think they have a really good core of players. Like Cam Johnson is really nice.
Thomas, I think, could win you a game in this series. He could randomly go off.
How is his playing time? I have not been watching the Nets though.
Man, it's sad though. I haven't seen a lot. I think I watched the first few games once like KD and Kyrie were gone, and they looked good.
I believe Cam Thomas is in the doghouse right now.
Yeah, I think it's because Jacques Vaughn's a very defensive-minded coach.
Yeah.
And then even then, I think trying to usurp guys like Spencer Dinwiddie and Mikal Bridges is hard, especially if you're a guy who doesn't play like defense. So yeah. I think Cam Thomas should for sure get a. He's gonna come off the bench for sure, but again, I think you use that as fire. You use as a thing to potentially be like, hey, Mikal might be struggling. He might be getting clamped a little bit. Spencer might be struggling, but hop on my back. Hop on my back. Yeah, we were talking. I remember like when they first came together like this, we were already saying like, it's giving. What was it? 2016 Nuggets.
It was it was like 20. No, it was
2015.
2011 Nuggets or 20 yeah.
Yeah, 2011 Nuggets, 2019 Nets. It's just a team of just dogs. No real like big ego players, but it's a solid roster.
It's a fun team.
Yeah.
Really fun team. I'm really excited to watch that. I think they have a lot of good pieces. Obviously, they lack that superstar. It would have been fun to see what this team would look like too with Ben Simmons healthy. With this,
I was gonna say yeah, but them back shots, man.
I know the back shots.
Man, do you think Ben Simmons is ever gonna get back to like not even necessarily being like the whole thing, he was supposed to be this positionless guard that was, was fitting for, multiple DPOYs, MVP type player. Do you think he's even going to be able to get back to like even being like a rotational dude?
I think so. I think
Mm,
there's just way too much that I think everything that's held him back is just all physical. I think it's all physical. I think, and what happens is when you are not physically there, you are not going to be mentally there either. You don't believe in your body. So you don't believe in yourself to be able to do the things you once did. Um, so I think he really needs to, like, this year, I really felt like he should have just taken a step back and gotten healthy. So, and if he's not there yet, then he has to just take time off, get healthy. He's got a fat contract. He's 26, man. He could still play a long amount of time. Um, so I really think he can go back to being, I wouldn't say all star caliber player. I think that'll take time, like how we saw with Clay. Like when he got back from 2 years of layoff, like that takes a
I was
while for
thinking
you.
it's going to be something like that where you
And
have the
and
first
let's
season and then this next season could potentially be like really good.
Yeah, Clay was awful the first year he got back. Let's be real about his numbers, man. He was bad. Like he was not good. He this is not a starting caliber player. Then he played himself more after the championship team, and you see him now. Like he's got one of his best percentages since I think his like third year in the league. Um, like Clay's having an awesome year, and so you can mimic that progress with a guy like Simmons is when he's fully healthy and slowly playing himself into shape, into more basketball rhythm. Like you can start to see the value, and there's so many things that he does well that just can't be that you just can't. What do you call that? You just can't erase, right? He's a 6'10" guy that can see over the floor, who naturally handles the ball, is really good at playmaking, and is a really good finisher around the rim, right? Even though he's been biffing wide open layups, but that's besides the point, right? So someone who's played with back issues, it's hard, man. It's hard to get a lift. It's hard to lift up into a jumper. It's hard to get up and finish at the rim. And if you're falling short, and if you're a guy like him who used to take it from cross court, and you're trying to finish, stop on a dime and finish, with grace at the rim and trying to focus on your touch, that's really difficult, man.
Mm,
Like that's really hard. There's more often than not that you'll just stop yourself short because you've already lost so much physical energy. Um, so again, I think he can be a rotation player again. I don't think there's any problem with that. I just don't think that's worth it for that contract. But I'm sure like once he's done this contract, it'll we'll see what he looks like after.
no doubt, no doubt. I mean, the Eastern Conference is going to be a very solid playoff bracket this year. I think. I mean,
Yeah,
there's the Cavs and Knicks. I think is going to be electric. That's going to be good.
that's gonna be the best series.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that's the best series
Oof. I
in the
can't wait
first
for
round.
that.
In the first round.
That's going to be. Oof.
Yeah.
You think Jalen Brunson's going to own Donovan Mitchell, or is Donovan Mitchell going to get his get back?
Oh man, I think. Ooh.
Or are we going to see another where they're trading like 50 pieces like it's nothing?
I think Donovan Mitchell is going to have a good time against New York. I just don't
Home.
think there's anybody on New York that can guard him.
Yeah, and people forget when it comes to like the playoff numbers, Donovan Mitchell's up there with like
Yeah,
Michael Jordan.
he's a dog.
Oh yeah.
He's a dog, man. He loves the playoff shine. So yeah, I think he's gonna be. I think Cleveland still wins that series, but I think that's a 7-game series.
I'm hoping. I'm praying for that. Oof.
Yeah. Everything else in the first round, I think it'd probably go the way that we think it would.
Yeah, I don't think there's not too much room for upsets. One that more we might see that though is we got the Western Conference and this kind of
Yeah.
little subtitle got like the 11th hour because I mean like we said, Eastern Conference is fully set. When it comes to the West, 1 and 4 solidified. You got Denver, Memphis, Sacramento, of course, and now you got Phoenix that solidified yesterday. And then the 10 spot is the other one. That's the only one that's like completely solid there. You got the Thunder, obviously. You see that how today they're going to rest all their guys. But 5 to 9, all up in the air. You got that between Golden
Yeah.
State, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Timberwolves, the Pelicans. Let's start with Golden State. I got this question though. How good do you think they can be if they add Wiggins? You know, he's a guy that we're hoping that his dad's all good. I'm hoping he's able to get back on the court, but you know, how does Wiggins you think really impact the ceiling that much? Yeah. That was all just a setup to say yeah.
You had if they didn't have Wiggins back this year, I still think this like man, I don't know. How much more do we need to see when Steph Curry's in the playoffs? Like I don't know. I don't know how much more we can say. It just this team is so built for the postseason. This team is so built for the postseason.
Oh yeah.
And yes, they might play the Suns in the first round. That's gonna be a tough out. But if they manage to get past the Suns, there is no way they're not making the
Oh
finals again.
yeah. If they make it past Phoenix, they defeat that demon. Oh my goodness.
There's no way.
You couldn't tell.
There's
You can't tell them
absolutely no
shit.
way.
You can't tell them
No,
anything.
no, there's no way. And that would be great, like as a storyline, seeing Steph Curry surpass Kevin Durant. As much as I would love to see this Phoenix team go far because of what they're built, and like if the Warriors get past Kevin Durant and the Suns, they bring back Wiggins at some point in the postseason, or to start the postseason, they already have him. Like, I just think that this team has they've gone through so much this year to get to the point where they're at. And now that they're in a position where, yes, they're gonna be in the playoffs for sure. We were talking about them being a 10th seed, bro. Like this is crazy. They're in the 5th seed right now. They're about to make the playoffs, dog. And if they fall through and they stay where they're at 5 and 6, right? If they go to 6 and they play the Kings, that's money team.
Oh,
If they
I
say
as much as people want to say Sacramento could give them a run for their money, I love you, Sacramento, but I don't think they stand a chance.
no,
We're on
I
some real
agree.
shit.
Agreed with that 100%. So if they get past the Suns, they bring Wiggins back at some point. It's hard for me to say that they're not gonna make the
It's
finals.
I don't want to say it's cruise control, but low key might be cruise
Yeah,
control.
yeah. So
I like
that's
that.
been the one fun series for me. In the play on in terms of the positioning, I just find that super interesting. Um, I really think if the Lakers can get into the 6th, I think they're cruising as well.
Oh, man, LeBron and Steph conference finals. Shit.
That's what I'm saying, bro. Because I think those are the two teams that you can give them a late seed and lose and not have any home court advantage and still win series,
Mm.
right? So, yeah, the Clippers for me, that's a disappointing team, eh? That's the
Yeah,
team that should have been on the
you hate it
disappointing
because
list.
they were looking nice, and then you'll have the whole PG thing. But I think to have a little bit of a silver lining, these past few games, you've seen them really kind of like rally together. You saw I think they still lost that Memphis game, but the one where the Russell Westbrook, we've all seen the photo. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so I don't say the it's impossible, but I will say, man, to have all this hype, to have two of the best wings in the entire NBA, and only really put forth one conference finals, man, there's LA. The Clippers are cursed. Clippers are
Want
cursed.
me to say something? Want me to add something to that?
Say it. Say it.
How I feel about Miami is how I feel about the Clippers.
Oh, damn.
I think that's a team it's worth looking at and saying I just don't think that the return on investment has been there.
Man, right when they're building their new stadium too. Holy.
I just don't. What have they done? Like you just said it. What have they done?
They got the conference finals.
That's all they've ever done.
They got the bubble wrap.
They got the bubble wrapped Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that Toronto got the best version of Kawhi.
Mm.
Because goddamn man, if we got this version of him, oh my god. Anyways, I digress. Clippers, just get him out of there, man. Like I would rather see the Mavericks in the play-in or the playoffs than the Clippers.
How you think about the Timberwolves? No, I'm kidding. No, the Timberwolves I think are like They're definitely in the mid. They're in the
This is what I
purgatory
want.
that you
This is what
never
I think
want to
about
be
them.
in.
Just kidding. I was gonna like pretend. I was gonna like pretend to fart in the mic, yo.
Yo! Oh
No,
my
I was gonna do what you
goodness.
thought I was gonna do. I was gonna pretend to fart in that mic, bro. Like they're
Holy.
doo doo.
Again, man,
Yeah,
I'll just
doo
say
doo.
it. You could have had, if you kept Beal or if you switched for Mike Conley, either or, and Anthony Edwards. You got Cat. You got Jared Vanderbilt. You got Walker Kessler. You got Malik Beasley. You got a Nas Reed.
Yeah.
That's just a solid ass team. Not
I mean, they
much.
could have also had Donovan Mitchell if you really think about the
Yeah.
package.
Oh man, a backcourt
They
of,
might have traded for the wrong guy.
yeah. That and Rudy Gobert kind of screwed everybody in terms of like the market for like upper
Yeah.
echelon players. But man, let's talk about the Pelicans though. It's been pretty well like versed for everyone that Zion is probably not coming back until mid the mid first round, and even that's kind of up in the air.
Yeah. Yeah.
How you feel about this Pelicans team? They've been playing very well, I will say. Bi, I think, has really started to show his chops as like a secondary, tertiary creator. How you feeling about it, Ruben? You want to say they ass?
Ass. Ass. No, without Zion, there's I don't know. There's nothing to really talk about for me.
Mm,
The 42 and 39, they could make the sixth seed, but without Zion, they're not making any noise, man. Like Bi has been on a tear though. Like he has
yeah,
been superstar, and he has been like he's just not been able to stay healthy. They have pieces, man. They have really good pieces. I just think like it's really hard when you don't have your star player.
and you especially
Um,
want to capitalize on these rookie contracts because I'm not gonna lie, the
yeah,
way Trey Murphy's been playing, if they don't move like CJ McCollum or one of those big contract dudes, he might price them out.
exactly. Trey Murphy's a guy you got to hang on.
Mm.
So, and as much as I love CJ and the veteran leadership he's brought and the games that he's played, he's been awesome. I just also don't think that he's the guard, the lead guard for the Pelicans. So I think that
I agree with
there
that.
needs to be, this would have been the perfect team to have Lonzo on, quite
They
frankly.
they need a game manager more than like
Yeah,
a guy who's gonna give
because
you
they've
all the
got all
ISO
those guys, right?
buckets. Yeah.
They've got all the guys who can score buckets, right? They've got the BIs in the world. They will have Zion when he comes back. You've got Trey Murphy now. So I'm probably forgetting other names, but yeah, a really good player that to see on a team like this would be like Tyus Jones or something like that, right?
Oh, that would be perfect.
Right?
No
He would
doubt.
be an absolute perfect guy for there, and he can defend the basketball as well. CJ is not much of a defender, so.
Mm.
But I mean, that's just to say, I think Pelicans aren't going to make noise for me. I don't think they're, it's not worth saying much, especially with Zion. Like they need Zion.
Mm. All right, shifting from there. So again, if y'all aren't aware, the play-on begins next week. We're into postseason basketball, baby. It's a beautiful thing. But one team that's not going to be there, it's the Mavericks. I want to start it with
Mm.
this. What do you think the offseason looks like for them, Ruben? Because obviously, there's the Kyrie extension, maybe a Christian Wood extension. There's a lot of things that they need to figure out. And yeah.
Well, I mean, I think Mark Cuban talked about it a bit, but I think they've laid out their plans, which is they want to retain Kyrie.
Mm.
Um, and they just guaranteed themselves a top 10 pick, right? So they do have a top 10 pick, but if I'm getting it right, I feel like they might flip that top 10 pick around
I don't
for the
want them
talent.
to though, personally.
Neither do I, because
Yeah.
then you're really hampering your future. Like you're leveraging your future, and I think that's hard because it's with Luca's attitude right now. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he came out this summer and said he wants to trade.
Mm.
I wouldn't be surprised because clearly he's not enjoying time in Dallas. And he's said it multiple times, like in the last few press conferences, where he's like, dude, it's been hard to play basketball. So I don't know what he's got going on personally. I hope he's all right.
Oh, there was that
Well, he
thing with
doesn't.
his mom with the whole
Yeah,
like trying to sue him for his name kind of thing.
yeah, for sure. Which is screwed up, man. It's your family, eh?
Yeah.
But I think he's got a lot of internal battles. but it just doesn't feel like the situation in Dallas has helped that. Like, typically guys would say, being back on the court is what would help me. Being on the team with my guys, being with the organization, like those are typically things that players have said, and it's like, okay, these are things that take me away from whatever the issues are going outside of the court. But it seems to be translating inside, and I think a part of that is just because of the fact that I just don't think that he feels like he has an opportunity in Dallas to get to a winning situation. So yeah, I think they gotta number one, they gotta make sure Luke is happy. Number two, they gotta retain Kyrie. Number three, I think they keep the pick, and you draft well. And number four, I think you reassess your roster. I don't think they should retain Christian Wood. I don't think. And Mark Cuban was asked that, and he said, "Okay, what about Christian Wood? Would you re-sign him?" He said, "I'm not going to go into individual players." So he didn't even say. He could have said that after being like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna make sure that he's taken care of, and then everybody else, we won't talk about individually." He could have given a better answer, but he straight up said like, "No, we're not going to go through everyone individually," which means to say I just don't think that he's invested in Christian Wood, so the organization won't be either.
Mm.
So, um, it's hard, man. They leveraged a lot of their future in that trade too. I mean, Dorian Finney-Smith is a guy that you hang around, and the fact that they did that for a potential rental, um, I could say number one, they should try and retain Kyrie, but I don't think Kyrie's staying.
I don't think so either. I think
I think he's going to Phoenix.
He goes to Phoenix, man. How the hell is he gonna get there though? Wait, is that? Are you saying the hypothetical is that they win this year, CP3 retires, and then boom? Something along those lines?
That could be one of them, or because we've been hearing like for the last couple of months that the Phoenix Suns are assessing their future with Chris Paul at the point guard. So I mean, there's very possible a deal that they could do sign and trade, right? They could also do, um, if they could sign Kyrie at a really small deal. I think Phoenix doesn't have like the money. I mean, they have Aiton as a potential leverage. Um, how funny would that be? Aiton and Luke on the same team, but I'm just saying. I think like there's been a lot of talks about meeting him in Phoenix. So meeting KD in Phoenix for Kyrie. So I don't know.
That would be insane. In my opinion, I think Kyrie stays, and the main reason why is this: there's no state income tax in Texas. Big reason why Kyrie left the Nets was that his money wasn't on the table. As much as it might be a little murky of a situation, might be a little mid, you want your money, Kyrie. That's the place to be. And then even looking at the potential asset that they have with the 10th overall pick. Right now, they're mocked to take Jordan Hawkins, the dude who just won the national championship with UConn. He's a dude that I think could fit really well into there. He's 6'5", so, not undersized by any means, but he plays defense. That's what you really need. And not only that, I think this might be another time where, looking back on the player I'm going to talk about, Keegan Murray. He wasn't mocked to go that high, but we saw what happens when you prioritize fit over, next best player available. All that is to say, there's another Murray in the draft this year. Keegan's brother Chris, he's another guy that's profiling to look like a lot like his brother in terms of defensively. He's not a liability at all. Starting to stretch the floor a little bit. And again, this team needs some wings who will play defense. So I think there's a lot of avenues they could go with the pick. Even if you maybe not necessarily trading it outright, but maybe even looking at trading down a bit and getting another asset, something along those lines could be the avenue for the Mavericks. But yeah, I think this is unarguably probably the most important offseason for the Mavericks since that year that Kobe called up Dirk with the hopes of prying him away.
Yeah, this is a huge offseason. I think they're going to be the team that makes the most noise this year because of what happens with Kyrie. It's hilarious. This is it's almost like a perfect segue.
Oh yeah. Shout out to Enjoy Basketball. Kenny Beecham, obviously the GOAT of all this stuff when it comes to talking about hoops. Build the perfect championship team around Luka Doncic using
oh my god,
one player from his 2018 draft class, one rookie or sophomore, one Hall of Famer, one All-Star. And just to add a little bit of zesty to it, a little bit of a Black Tops vibes, we're gonna add a six man, and this is any guy who's won the six man of the year. And just to preface it, it's the player as they were as the sixth man. So this is just to say that you can't just say James Harden like, oh, James Harden's arguably the third or fourth best shooting guard of all time. So plop him right there. So Ruben, bro, do you want to go first?
Yeah.
All right, let's hear your team.
I've sort of got two versions of mine.
Okay.
I've sort of got two versions. Okay. So, Luca at point. At two guard, I'm going to take a Hall of Famer. And I'm going to put Dwayne Wade.
Okay.
Dwayne Wade at two guard. And I'll talk about why I made these decisions a little bit afterwards. At the three spot, I'm going to take someone from Luca's draft, Mikal Bridges. At the four spot, I'm going to take a rookie, and I'm going to take Keegan Murray.
Mm.
And at center, I'm going to take an all-star. I'm going to take Joel Embiid. And as the sixth man, I'm going to take Manu Ginobili.
Oh, that's a cold ass team.
Yeah,
That's
a
cold
cold
ass
team. So the reason why I took Dwayne Wade is he's a defensive juggernaut despite being a 6'3", 6'4", two guard. He's obviously a major athlete, really good at playmaking, at being able to create his own shot, and obviously we know he's great off the ball. If we look at his time with LeBron, right? Like he's going to be able to guy to push the pace. Mikal Bridges is a great 3-and-D player, can guard any of the best players in the league. Keegan Murray, same thing. He's a 6'9" forward. He's versatile, can defend, he can shoot the three, spread the floor. And Joel Embiid, who can anchor your defense and can do all the same things. And can you imagine a two-man game between Luka and Joel Embiid?
Oh, that would be nasty.
This is a team, exactly. So this is the team with a lot of three-point shooting, a lot of there's no defensive liability except for Luka. But you cover that a lot with a lot of length and size, athleticism, and then you have one of the greatest six men of all time, also an All-Star and Hall of Famer, Manu Ginobili. You can come off the bench. You won't lose. You can't miss a beat with having this kind of roster. So that's my pick for that. I do have a secondary team. Instead of Dwayne Wade, the sophomore that I would take is Cade Cunningham.
Okay.
Right, and so
bring the boy home.
Keegan Murray. Yeah, so that removes Keegan Murray from the power forward spot. So it goes Luka, Cade Cunningham, Mikal Bridges, and at the 4 spot, I've got Dirk Nowitzki.
I'm not gonna lie, I was thinking of that. Yeah,
I've got Dirk Nowitzki and then Joel and Manu. So again, you have Cade, you still have a really good secondary ball handler, but you get a lot of really good shooting. You get size. You get I think Luka is best when you optimize the offense around him, and if you can at least anchor the defense and have a really good perimeter defender. So that's why I have Mikal and Joel. I think you can kind of sacrifice. It's like almost like punting fantasy stats. I think we're punting a little bit of the overall defensive ability that I had in the first team, but that second team is unguardable. So
I like that.
Yeah,
those are two solid ass teams. All right, for me, so obviously I got Luka at my point, and I'm gonna put Mikal at the 2 here. I think when you look at that draft, when you look at the player who would absolutely like fit best next to Luka, it's Mikal. My rookie / sophomore is the guy I'm really high on. Gonna get Franz Wagner. He's good off ball. He's not a completely liability as a defensive player. My Hall of Famer. Shout out to all the Rockets fans. I'm taking Hakeem Olajuwon, baby.
Oh, man, one of the guys I wanted to take.
Yeah.
That's good one.
And then my all-star, I'm going to go with Bam Adebayo. And then for my sixth man of the year, my sixth man is unarguably, in my opinion, the greatest sixth man to ever touch the court, Jamal Crawford. As much as he's not going to be there defensively as much as Luka, he's there to get buckets, so that's okay.
If you talk about his prime, like sixth man Jamal Crawford, there's no one
I just don't think there's anybody who is as skilled at creating their own offense off the bench, being able to be as much of a spark plug, being able to create like outside of not necessarily having plays called for you than Jamal Crawford.
100%.
I mean, like I said in one of our earlier episodes, I think Jamal Crawford would be like an all-star, superstar level player if he was playing today. How much ISO ball they run with how much like creative freedom there is. I think Jamal Crawford would be an absolute gem to watch today, man. Well, I mean, looking at the rest of this roster, Mikal Bridges, not much more to say about that. One of the best, if
Yeah,
not the best, 3-and-D wings. Franz Wagner, somebody I'm very, very high on. He's good off the ball. You saw that how his production didn't necessarily take a big dip. In fact, I think it jumped a bit playing
yeah,
alongside Paulo. So Franz Wagner, another German to the Mavs. The Hall of Famer, Hakeem Olajuwon. I don't think there's been anybody who's been as defensive versatile and has been as like, we always talk about how Giannis is a gazelle. If Giannis is a gazelle, Hakeem's a fucking unicorn, man. The
yeah,
post moves, the fact that he was able to stretch it out a bit from the midi, one of the best defenders of all time. Hakeem's the man, and I want to see him in that in that Dallas blue. And then for the All Star, Bam. I'm thinking about a guy who doesn't necessarily need the ball to be effective. We'll put him in the dunker spot at times, whatever it may be. But the main thing is that he can guard 1 through 5, just like I think Hakeem would be able to do. You know, we go switch everything on this side. And then again, Jamal Crawford.
yeah.
There's not much when it comes to being able to get buckets off the bench. There's not much you could do better. Manu, I think, is if Jamal Crawford's here, Manu's like right, just a tad bit below in my opinion. But man,
Yeah. I love that team. I love that team. Franz Wagner caught me off guard. Actually, no. Franz Wagner is a good pick. The one that caught me off guard is Bam Adebayo. I thought you were gonna take Giannis.
see, I love Giannis, but I don't know. I think Bam. I like Bam as like my you know being
What
able to
what is
anchor my
what,
paint.
so because he can you wouldn't want Giannis anchoring your paint?
Giannis is I love Giannis, but he's more of the help defender. When you look at the Bucks, it's mainly Brook that anchors the paint in it.
That's true. Matt, like that's the thing is like I look at this team and I go, you could almost go Hakeem at the center to anchor your down low.
Yeah,
And
but
you can play Giannis at the four.
you could
It's
have
it's it's
Hakeem and Bam
interchangeable.
switching in or out.
That's true. That's crazy because if you really think about it, Giannis and Luca is a really perfect pairing too.
That would be
Because
another
while
really good
Giannis
one. Yeah.
can't really shoot, the beauty about him is he can also handle the ball like much better than Bam can on the
Mm.
offensive end. And man, man, that's interesting. Bam's actually a really good pick too, though, because Bam does anchor the paint. He's really good at switchability defensively. Like he can we talk about Giannis as being able to guard 1 through 5. I think Bam is a tad better at being able to switch out on the perimeter
I agree.
against
Yeah.
guards. Because I've seen a few times where Giannis gets beat off the dribble, especially when it comes to like the flash switch. So um, yeah, I like that. I like that team a lot, man.
Yeah, I think that in a big thing was that, we've seen that Bam doesn't need 20 plus shots to be effective. We've
That's
seen how
true.
he's able to you know, get the dirty work kind of rebounds here and there. So I think that was a really big thing. I love Giannis, obviously I'm a Bucks fan and all that. But I feel like Giannis doesn't necessarily perform well without the basketball in his hands on the offensive end. Not to say that he's bad by any
It makes
standards,
sense.
but yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Man, yeah, this is great. We both had some solid seasons. I'm not gonna lie, I was trying to, I was looking at making like an all European team just for the shits. Which I mean, if we're
Dude,
looking at
you
that,
could.
give me
I mean,
Facundo Campazzo,
yeah. All right, give me Evan Fournier.
man.
Um, I mean, you can do Franz, you can do Mana, you can do Dirk. Your All Star could be Nikola Jokic.
You have
It's
Giannis
all
in there
white.
as
You can
well.
do just an all do white team except for
Oh
Giannis.
man, the Mavericks would love that.
Oh, Mark Cuban.
Uh,
Where you're go and find your robe, brother.
man.
Hey man, I'm not lying though. This dude be crazy with the YTs.
Cuban's Jewish though, isn't he?
Is he?
I think so. Not to bring all not
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm about to get
yeah,
canceled.
not to bring all that
No,
into it.
no. I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm just saying, like, there's been a lot about the Dallas Mavericks organization, who is owned by Mark Cuban, and their preference for white players. I'm just gonna say that.
Hey man,
I'm just gonna say that.
true. Steve
I'm
Nash,
gonna get canceled. I'm gonna get
Dirk
canceled so hard.
Nowitzki. Uh,
Yeah.
who's the really Tim Bradley?
Wait. Okay. Let's be real then. Here. Oh man, whatever. All right. If Mark Cuban, man, if Mark Cuban really cared, no, I'm not gonna say it that way. He's the one who traded for Kyrie Irving, and he's the one who wants to re-sign Kyrie Irving. Does the man really care about social issues?
See, I don't really want to get too into that, but I feel like,
Yo,
it's a little.
bro, there's been history about the Mavericks not wanting anybody that don't look like a piece of paper.
Man, I can't say it's not true. I'll say that. But
This is coming from two people of color, man. If you start getting angry at us, that's just you problem. That's a you problem. If you guys
true,
start angry
man.
at two color people talking about discrimination and racism in a world and in a nation that is in a continent that has predominantly been run and owned by, you know,
The white tees.
yes, let's be real here.
Oh man. Yeah, I'm not really trying to get too into that. But hey,
I
man,
just said it's history there, bro.
Kyrie, get your money, man. I don't want to see Luca move because he fits. He fits
Yeah,
with the Mavs.
yeah, Kyrie, get your bank and just request a trade and go to a team for the culture.
No, man, he's gonna stay. No state income tax. He can keep that whole 250 or whatever it is now.
Yeah. My dog was barking, yo. She's like, man, yeah, Mark Cuban ain't the man.
Or actually, no. If Kyrie makes All NBA, I think he's eligible for like, bro. I think it's something crazy like 297 or something. I think that's what the Supermax
Actually?
is up to now,
Yeah, that's crazy.
which is
Oh,
insane.
my dog be barking, bro.
That's all good. You think Jalen Brown's worth 297?
No, but he will get it.
Mm. Or does he go to Houston? Look how most people. I really hope he doesn't go to Houston, man. That would be.
No,
You know where I hope he does go though. You know what would be crazy though? If the Hornets are able to get off a lot of the money they have, put him beside LaMelo, that could be nasty.
Oh my god! And then you got Jabari Smith. And,
No, my brother. He goes to Charlotte. If he went to Charlotte,
I thought you were talking about Houston signing both.
I don't want him to be in Houston, bro.
Nick Nurse, dog.
If they sign Nick Nurse, it's gonna be good.
I don't know. I
But
gotta be real though about Nick Nurse for a second. He's not. I think he's not as good as a coach we all thought he would be. I thought he was. It took teams years to figure out what his defensive schemes were, but once they figured it out, like it is like reading a children's book.
yeah,
Flash high defense, attack the ball handler, blitz and scramble, wide open corner three because they're protecting the paint, trust the rotation guy, and just swing. It's such easy basketball. It's like almost, and teams were crazy about it because that style of play worked for a team like the Golden State Warriors because of the fact that most of their action starts at the top, right, with Draymond, so they can blitz those actions that happen off the ball. And so it was built for that. That's why they won a championship. And then you had a guy like Marc Gasol who was anchoring the paint. And then now you get down to the bare bones of a roster, and you look at the skeleton team, and you look at the fact that they just can't perform his scheme to their ability because it's not optimally suited for your roster. You want to play 6'9" defense, but that you can't scramble that because you don't have an anchor defensively. They got Jakob now. They've been playing better since they did it. But there's still an issue there because of the fact that like Scotty is playing point of attack defense and he can't guard the ball for his life. He should honestly be a help guy or an off-ball guy. He should not be defending the point of attack because more often than not he gets beat off the defense. And Nick Nurse's system is say, hey, if you get beat, go scramble to the next guy, someone pick up, fill the lane. And it's like, dude, like that's such easy basketball to read. You just drive and kick. And that's why this team has lost so often, and that's why they give up so many corner threes, because it's like the most easily read basketball, and Nick Nurse has chosen not to adjust. So anyways, I just got to say, I don't think Nick Nurse has had a really good season coaching, and I think he has not made the adjustments that you think a coach should make. So, I mean, I tweeted it yesterday and the day before. I said one day, I said I'm good on Nick Nurse after this season. I said yesterday, I'm good on this core moving forward. I don't need to
Did
see any more
all
of
of
this core.
Raptors Twitter come for your head?
No, because all of Raptors Twitter pretty much
Is all a
agrees with me.
consensus? Oh,
I mean,
that's not
a
good.
lot of them agree with the fact that Nick Nurse is just a piece of the problem. I think everybody agrees that Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster have been cooked this year. I just think they've been pocket watching and they've been doing more. They're worried more about getting the home playoff revenue rather than building a team for success, which is why they made the trades they did. I think there's a reason Nick Nurse was playing Jeff Doughton every game to show the management that this is what they needed to win, and management did not fulfill the wish of converting his contract so that he can play in the postseason. So there's clearly a conflict of interest right now between the coach and what the team wants on the floor versus the surrounding stuff like generating team revenue,
Mhm.
pocket watching because maybe the management doesn't believe in this core. So there's a lot of issues. And Nick Nurse has even come out and said like, we need a guy like Jason Tatum, and it's like it's kind of crazy to say something like that after they lost one of their.
I think
It's
29
like
other teams would
Boston,
say
it was
would say
it was
that.
against Boston like a couple months ago, and he said we need guys to play at that level. We need guys at that level. And so you're basically saying there's nobody on your team that's a superstar caliber player. So what are you ultimately trying to say? Right? So the belief in your team is not that strong. So and I think it's been that issue like all season long. So um yeah, it I just gotta say there, I think Nick Nurse is gone this year. I know Raptors fans are gonna come for my head for saying this just because of the outside stuff. I'm speaking purely from a basketball perspective. I know that it affects like how you look at the team and like ultimately you can't ever erase what someone does outside of what's happened. If we're like, and I know people are gonna come for my head for this, but we're talking about on the court. If you bring in a guy like Imi Udoka, I think that changes a lot.
Oh,
Yes, does that look
yeah.
bad? I think that is awful. I think Imi Udoka should not be brought on simply for the fact that there's beyond the stuff that happened. I think there's also a lot of real stuff with him talking about um sexual misconduct and like kind of not abusing women but like taking advantage of women. I think that's the wrong message you want to send, especially for an organization like the Raptors that have spoken so openly about supporting women, which I think should be the right thing. I don't think you should hire Imi Udoka just for that fact, but if you bring in a guy like Imi Udoka on the court,
Yeah, if we're
like
just talking
as a
ball.
coach, if we're just talking ball, bro, like this is a team that would need a Imi Udoka, right? Like he's a guy that changes culture. Um, Nick Nurse didn't do that. He came in with Kawhi Leonard, who changed culture. So, anyways, I'm just gonna put that right there. That's my little rant for the Raptors. It's been
Mm.
an awful year. I hope they get bounced by tomorrow. They deserve it. At this
Um,
point, I'm cheering for Pat Bev to jump on the Toronto stanchion, going, yeah.
oh man,
Like for the Raptors to finish their core off like this, like the last couple
you
years,
don't want to see it go down like this for sure.
I mean, at the same time, I do because then
Well,
it's
if you're
like,
going like pick wise, but like
oh yeah, 100%.
if you're
But yeah,
going pride wise, I don't know.
yeah. I mean, if Pat Bev does that, I'll go, hey, Masai, Nick Nurse, and all you players that didn't play up to your standard. This is what happens. So, I mean, I know it sounds kind of rough, but that's just my opinion.
Mm. I guess here's my little Bucks friend. Man, I've
There you
seen these
go.
things on Twitter. Chris Middleton last dance. And I don't want to say I agree, but
You think he's
man,
done? You
no,
think
I
he's
don't
done?
think he's done. But when you look at the injury track record, you gotta think that because I think he has a player option this year, or this might be the year he's a free agent. I'm not sure, but whenever you have to revisit giving him money, I think you do have to consider. Well, I think I'll come at it from a couple vantage points. The first one being like, if I'm just trying to do what's best financially versus like culturally. Financially, I don't think you offer him anything crazy. Like anything kind of
Yeah, I
starting
agree.
with like
There's no max deal
two
there for
or
him.
yeah, definitely no max deal. But when you look at culturally what he's been able to do, how much Giannis loves playing with him and obviously what he's done for the team, obviously you pay him, but I think you do have to consider, like, is it worth giving $100+ million to a guy who's not going to play more than even 60 seems like a long shot at times. So, but this is all me just to say they're obviously going to pay him just because, small market team. He is kind of homegrown in the sense that you got him when he was still like budding. And then, you know, I don't know. It's just, it's looking a little shaky when you look at, like, again, Chris Middleton's coming off of an injury. He somewhat re-aggravated it recently. Grayson Allen's not looking the best when it comes to like injury wise. There's just a lot of things that is happening at the wrong time that you don't want not only just to ever happen, but especially when you're about to head into the playoffs. But
Yeah.
We got Giannis Antetokounmpo. Drew's having a career year. Brooks aging like fine wine. Bobby, I think, is sixth man of the year. Javon Carter is, I'd argue, one of the best role players. It's there's a lot to look forward to, but as we are just you kind of pointed to this whole rant with the Raptors. There's things we like to nitpick, and it's looking like I don't want to say this is the last year that the Bucks have like a super solid chance, but you know I remember seeing like a reel or like some kind of TikTok where it was saying like, one of those buzzy like, oh, the Bucks have a really big problem. And the problem was
Yeah.
the youth. And I think that's a really big thing. We've got, I mean, our youngest dude on the team is 21. There's no like kind of 19-year-old like up and comer kind of thing. I like Marjan, but is he going to be able to catch up to being able to be a solid rotational player while Giannis is still like at peak, which is arguably
Yeah.
maybe what 3-4 years. I don't know, but when you look at this draft and the potential like UDFA's, whatever it may be, the fact that the Bucks don't have another first round pick until I don't even know if we have ours the year after this, because I know this year is I think it's going to the Clippers because it got traded, but
Yeah, they're really
the
banking on this core to be continue to be
yeah
competitive.
yeah,
So
and I
yeah,
think this
it's
core's
tough.
maybe got like 2 3 years. I'm more leaning on the side of two though.
I give it to. I would
Yeah.
say realistically, I'll give it to. I think the thing is that Drew and Middleton are both aging, and you can
Mm.
clearly see it. Um, so it's hard because Giannis is also still really young, and I think they'll still retain Giannis. It's just about building him up, and I think if in my opinion, I don't think Giannis is the guy that'll leave Milwaukee.
I wouldn't think
So
so either. Unless it's like they traded everybody and now it's like, well, what was like a situation where there was like a guy who got left out to dry and the rest of the team was like Eric Gordon almost, but like obviously times 20 because like Giannis is a franchise
I mean,
player.
you can talk about the Warriors. I mean, Draymond was kind of left to the ground, and he was
Oh yeah,
also in his
20 the
contract
2020,
situation.
yeah.
So I mean, yeah, I mean, and they ended up working it out. But I think Giannis is a guy who seems like for me seems pretty loyal. So I think
Mm.
I don't think we'll see that change.
Yeah. I just want to see this core like kind of ride till the wheel falls off, but
I
you
agree.
know,
Yeah, that would be nice to
we'll,
see
we'll, we'll see what happens.
for sure.
But regardless, postseason basketball is here, baby. The best part of the year is about to kick off. I'm so excited. This is gonna be crazy. I mean, hopefully we're able to get an episode in next week with the play-ins happening and
Should
all
yes, sir.
that. Should be able to, but life is life. We'll see what happens. Quick hitter, Ruben. For those who are in attendance, for those who are still here, who you got for today? UFC.
Oh, I got Izzy.
You got Izzy?
I got Izzy.
Mm.
Yeah, I got Izzy. I got Izzy. I gotta ride with Izzy, man. I like Alex Pereira. I actually really like Alex Pereira,
Oh yeah.
but
He
I think
just
Izzy's gonna
has
make
he
adjustments.
has the death touch. That's the only thing you got to worry about.
He does, but I think Izzy's got such good fight IQ. I think he's gonna
Mm.
understand how why he fell short in the last fight. I think he was really gun shy, and I think if there were 2 more seconds in the last fight, he would have
Oh,
ended
in round
Alex
one
Pereira
or was it round one or
Yeah,
two?
in the round
Yeah,
one.
that
Yep,
would have been
round one.
done. Denzo.
So I mean, I'm just saying. I think Izzy has to be more on the attack. I think he has to put pressure, and I think he has to use his ability to get on the inside because typically he's the one who fights with distance, but Alex Pereira is the bigger guy. So um, he's gotta be on the attack. He's gotta put pressure on him. And I think he's got to look for the outside leg. I think Izzy's gonna be much better this fight. I hope,
Mm,
and I think he's gonna be looking more on the attack and less gun shy. I think that was the problem, man. If he wasn't so gun shy in the first fight, I think he would have ended that before the round finished. So just put that
100%.
there.
Then who you got for? I mean, I don't think there's really much when it comes to Gilbert and Jorge. I think Gilbert's gonna pretty handily win that.
I think so too. I think when it comes to the wrestling, it's gonna matter a lot.
Mm.
And I really hope whoever wins this is the one that fights Leon, in my opinion, because I
Man,
don't think Colby
fuck
Covington
Colby,
deserves a shot.
man. There's no
No,
way he
deserves to have
deserves
a
a
shot.
shot.
It's just giving him Dana White privilege.
Mm. What do you think about that young dude though, Raul?
Bro, oh my god, he's good, dude. He's good. I
Yeah,
would not want to fight that guy. No, he's good. He's good. I think he's got all the tools. Like there are just some guys where they're young, but they just pick up everything. And one of my close friends who's like that, the guy he just picks up everything. Like you never done jujitsu. After a week, he's sleeping guys. He's sleeping blue belts. Like
damn.
it's just crazy. Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. There are just guys who just pick up the game like that. And this Roll kid looks like I think he's the next big star.
And I mean, he's coming out of this new generation of guys where, obviously beginning of the UFC, they were fighting for like pennies compared to now.
Yeah.
To where it's now, I think Raul dropped out of high school, right? He's like full time, fully engaged with fighting. Man,
Yeah, I can't wait for it. Yeah, I'm trying to fight.
oh my
Can't wait
goodness,
for Rogue, man. He's gonna kill it.
bro. And he's ambitioning for what? Like I think three straps,
Yeah.
three different weight
I think he can do
classes.
it too. At the age that he's at, he
Hmm.
can easily drop down weight. So I think he's taking full advantage of it right now, which is what he should. Like he's only 19, right? 18, 19.
18, 19, yeah.
So right now, up until he's about 25, is when he can safely drop down weights where he can go 145, 155, 135, 125 if he really wanted to.
I just hope my only thing is concern is that I hope they handle it correctly and not trying to thrust them too high into the stratosphere too
Yeah.
quickly. That's my only
I
concern.
agree. I agree. I think they definitely have to level him out. I think stay consistent with one weight class and then see where that goes afterwards.
Hundred
I think he
percent.
should really, if we're gonna do that, he has to clean a division first before he starts thinking about 3 straps.
Yeah. But all right, with that, this has been another episode of the Blacktop Podcast. We appreciate y'all tuning in. If you made it this far, I mean, we've been recording for what, an hour
2
40.
hours.
You've had to have enjoyed it. Leave a like, subscribe, follow, comment, whatever, all that good stuff. But with that, stay safe, stay blessed. We'll see y'all soon. Back shots, back shots, back shots.
That shows.